With Terry McLaurin providing a boost of energy by returning to the team, quarterback Jayden Daniels took a necessary step by showing both his flaws and his incredible potential. That and more right now on Locked On Commanders.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Commanders. I'm David Harrison, your guy on the ground covering the Washington Commanders for WUSA 9. And I'm right here with you 5 days a week. You can also find me writing about the Commanders on Sports Illustrated's CommanderGameDay.com. You can follow me on X at DHarrison82. I want to thank you for making Locked On Commanders your first listen or view, and a special thank you goes out to all the everydayers who come through for every episode, especially the handful of everydayers that I met at training camp on Sunday. Always great to meet someone who supports the show. So if you ever see me out and about, especially at practice, don't be shy. Go ahead and get my attention so I can come over and say hi to you and thank you in person. If you haven't already, please subscribe for free on YouTube or wherever you're listening to today's episode. And if it's your first time coming through, welcome to the program. Hopefully you like what you hear, at least enough to come back for more in a future date. Coming up on today's episode, running back Chris Rodriguez Jr. and Bowie TV's Candy Waller join the show to discuss camp and the return of Terry McLaurin. But we're starting off with a rundown of what went down at practice on Sunday morning. All of that coming up on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create your account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. The biggest story, the storyline coming out of Ashburn Sunday morning, Terry McLaurin reporting for training camp, officially ending his holdouts, reporting to the team, reporting for training camp. However, not participating in practice, not a hold-in. He is on the physically unable to perform list for an ankle injury. The head coach, Dan Quinn, stems from an ankle injury he suffered at the end of last season. But he first said that he's really excited. Quote, "I'm really pumped that he's here. Such an awesome competitor," end quote. But again, on the PUP list, ankle injury that Dan Quinn said they knew about at the end of last season and just said these kinds of things, sometimes they just tend to linger. It's not necessarily uncommon that they linger into the offseason and they can kind of extend for a little bit. What does that really mean? What it means is Terry McLaurin cannot participate in practice, but what he can do is work out with trainers, do some cardio, do some other types of things, but he cannot participate actively in practice. No position drills, no individual drills, no team drills. He'll be on a side field with the trainers like Sam Cosmi is, like offensive lineman Tim McKay is, or inside the building getting treatment or doing, whatever workouts they're doing in there. So that's what he's going to focus on, is rehabbing that ankle, getting it to where when the time comes, he is able to participate in practice. When is that time going to come? Well, partially when he's healthy. I think the other part is when he has a contract. The contract's still not figured out, still not complete, but they are all saying, the team is saying, Terry McLaurin is saying, they're working through things. The team is saying it in a little bit more optimistic kind of way than Terry McLaurin is. I've got a story up on WUSA9.com about Terry McLaurin's comments. I'm sure the WUSA9 will be throwing video down, all that stuff. Terry talked to a bunch of media members. Chick Hernandez of WUSA9 was in the scrum. For us, I was busy talking to some other players, so I wasn't there when Terry spoke, but certainly got all the quotes and comments and watched the video and all that stuff enough to write the story up for the site. So divide and conquer is the motto here sometimes. Jayden Daniels, let's get to the field. A little bit of a mixed bag on Sunday. Certainly better than Friday, the last time we saw him, where he threw 3 interceptions, 2 in 11 on 11s, 1 in 7 on 7. One of the ones in 11 on 11s would have been called back because of a defensive penalty, but still the interception was thrown, right? Wouldn't count in the stat box, but for our sakes and our note-taking purposes, certainly is something that we're going to talk about. Say hello to Juice if you're on YouTube. One of the kittens that we have here at the house. She decided to join us for today's program, just like Terry decided to join the Commanders. So Jayden Daniels, a little bit of an up and down performance. Like I said on Sunday, his final stat line for the first set of the 11 on 11s, 2 for 4 with an interception. So starting off the day with a little bit of an interception, Mike Sainristil getting that pick. If you see the clip, the Washington Commanders put up a clip on social media of the interception. It really was just an amazing play by Mikey Sainristil. Like, it's not a bad decision by Jayden Daniels, not a bad ball by Jayden Daniels. Mikey just made a better play, right? Sometimes we've seen it a lot, we've seen Jayden Daniels put the ball in a better position than the defender was in. And that in that sense, both sides made a good play. But the offense is ultimately the side of the ball that makes the better play and wins the rep. This time, it was the defense, specifically Mikey Sainristil, making the better play than Jayden Daniels and Jaylin Lane, who was targeted on the pass, made. However, not just that, but Luke McCaffrey was the intended receiver on another incomplete pass. Trey Amos was in coverage on that one. Nice, tight, physical coverage. Trey Amos continuing to just look good, man. No interceptions yet. Well, he did have the one interception that got called back on a penalty, right? So, again, we can still track it from just a conversational standpoint. But outside of that, no like splash plays and things like that. But you don't need your corners to make splash plays every single day. You just need them to be solid. They're in coverage, making it hard for the quarterback and the receiver to connect. And that is exactly what Trey Amos is doing. The big mistake came after that incomplete pass. Jayden Daniels rolled right through back across the field, which most quarterbacks will tell you don't do. I'll be honest, when I saw Jayden doing it, my football instinct was kind of like, oh, don't do that. But then I was like, it's Jayden. It'll be all right. Well, the ball hung up just a little bit. Mikey Sainristil was able to get over there and intercept the pass. Settled in after the interception, though, completed a slant to Luke McCaffrey. There was a dump off to Austin Eckler. Good decision there. And getting the ball out, getting the ball into the hands of his receivers, allowing them to make plays. The defense making some really good moves, getting pressure on Jayden Daniels. Again, the pads come on Monday. So we'll start to see, like, is the pressure, quote unquote, for real, or is it just because there's no pads and the offensive linemen really don't have anything to kind of grab onto and do all these things and steer and push and all that stuff. Some impressive plays, some other standout moments in the practice. At the end of the practice with team situational drills, the team is trailing, down by more than a field goal. Time is wasting away. They got to figure out what they're going to do. This situation specifically, Jayden Daniels and his offensive unit were down by 6. Seconds were taken away, needed a touchdown. Jayden Daniels threw an absolutely perfect ball to wide receiver Jaylin Lane in the right back corner of the end zone on the move. There were 2 defenders in the area. I mean, he just dropped it in a bucket. And this is Jaylin Lane. This is not a 6'4" receiver. This is a shorter receiver. It's got to be over the defenders and literally just kind of dropping in. Jaylin Lane made the catch. Mikey Sainristil and Quan Martin in coverage. Made the catch, however, not able to get 2 feet in bounds, unfortunately. And I can say that because I was literally standing right at that corner of the end zone. And more than the ball, I was watching his feet. There were a couple of other staffers there for the Commanders. We all agreed 1 foot in, 1 foot out, unfortunately. But still, absolutely amazing throw, man. I mean, you see that kind of a throw from your quarterback. The fact that he can make that throw in the first place is just amazing. The fact that Jaylin Lane, a rookie who's literally in his 4th training camp practice, nearly brought that ball in is incredible. So very, very good moment. Again, take the good for what you can get out of it. Defense, however, still making some noise on Sunday, building on their strong day on Friday. Mikey Sainristil, again, got the interception. Very good coverage all day long. Trey Amos, really good coverage. Jordan McGee has been all over the field. We're going to talk to Jordan. We're scheduled, I should say, to talk to Jordan later on this week. Really good training camp for him, looking healthy, looking fast, and looking instinctual. I'll tell you that. On offense, Luke McCaffrey made several catches on the day, looking really good, continuing to build on his strong OTA mandatory minicamp period. Chris Rodriguez Jr. showed really good burst and cut ability on one of his runs. And then when we're going to talk to him later here in the episode, a little bit of a slimmed down version of C-Rod. And then in a separate 2-minute drill, this time Sam Hartman was on the field, led a game-winning scoring drive. On a 3rd and 15 play during their possession, Sam Hartman connected with tight end Tyree Jackson, former quarterback, when he entered the National Football League, to convert, and they had to come up on the clock. Seconds were taken away. They didn't spike it. Instead, they snapped the ball, ran a play. He rolled out to his right side, threw a very high, very towering pass into the end zone, and connected with wide receiver Michael Strachan over cornerback Bobby Price with 0 seconds left on the clock. Jayden Daniels loved it. The offense loved it. Defense didn't love it as much. Bobby Price certainly didn't love it. But yeah, very good, solid drive. Very good end of game scenario situation practice for the Washington Commanders offense. And of course, everybody loves seeing Sam Hartman out there doing big things, right? Football is first, but that doesn't mean we're just going to ignore the Terry McLaurin situation. My thoughts and those of Bowie TV's Candy Waller coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode, this episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Fantasy football is back. Fire up the group chat, get your draft board ready, and buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, and all the overreactions we can live for. It's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy this year. Me and Locked On Commanders, we're playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too. Whether you're a first-timer just getting into the game or a veteran making your millionth league. Out here at practice, all I can think about sometimes is fantasy football. You see Mike Sainristil get a pick. You see Trey Amos with tight coverage, and you wonder if the Commanders' defense/special teams might be a good sneaky value pick. Then you see Luke McCaffrey getting some reps with the first team, second team, really just every team, but he's also making plays. And you might think he could be a late-round flyer, could be a breakout star here this season. I've always loved how I can pull up the Yahoo Fantasy app right on my phone and get all the info I need to make these tough draft day decisions. So to celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. It all begins August 4th. Stay tuned to get started by creating or joining a Yahoo Fantasy Football League at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. And let's make this fantasy season the best one yet. Joining me on the field following training camp practice number 4, one of the best on the beat, Candy Waller at Bowie TV, came through to give her thoughts on today's practice with the fans in attendance and everything else going on around the Washington Commanders. All right, y'all, we're out here, Locked On Commanders with Candy Waller, president of Bowie TV, one of the best beats covering this team every single day, so make sure y'all check that out. Candy, first day of fans here at practice. I know a little less fan presence this year, but what do they add to the dynamic?
I mean, they kind of give that stadium feel, right? Well, you know, when something good happens, they react. When something bad happens, they react. So it's kind of like how it would be on game day. And I think it's just the overall excitement and love for the team. I mean, you didn't necessarily ask me this, but honestly, as early as we got here, to see the line in the parking lot, and it was like, wow, fans cannot wait for this season to get started.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about Jayden, of course, right? We got to talk about Jayden. 3 interceptions last time we were out here on the practice field. Did throw another one today, but overall better day. How do you feel about watching a quarterback coming off a down day and then bouncing back the way that he did?
I mean, you got to love to see it, right? You would rather see it in day 3 and day 4 instead of week 3 and week 4 of the regular season. And that was one of the things that we talked about last week, right, David, was, okay, let's see how he recovers from this, because we were thinking on Friday that he was going to come out or he's got to be done for the day, and nope, he kept going and didn't necessarily get better, like you said, but today you saw a little bit of the same with that pick by Mike Sainristil, same way he got him last week, and then you did see the recovery going forward. So improvement and progress on both ends. Is good to see that from Jayden.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were the one I talked about on my show, how we thought team drills were done, and the next thing you know, first team offense is back out there. You were the one that pointed out to me that either Jayden or coach or both of them, somebody was like, no, we're not going to go out that way. We need to get better. And unfortunately, it didn't work, but you know what? You like the effort, right? You talked about Mikey. I mean, he had a pick on Saturday, had a pick on Monday. I mean, just the growth of this young man, not just as a rookie, but even into the second year. What are your thoughts on just Mikey Sainristil?
I mean, the intelligence. Like, he is reading Jayden like a book, which is good and bad, right? So it's like good for, the team and, seeing how he's learning so he can anticipate opposing quarterbacks, but this quarterback is the one we cover, and we're like, wait a minute, you got to kind of recover from a Mikey Sainristil. You can tell he's watching the film. You can tell he's reading the offense a lot better. He's just wherever he needs to be in order to make a play.
Yeah, 2 stories of the day, both revolving around the wide receiver position. Let's talk Terry first. Let's do that one first. Reported on the PUP list, physically unable to perform due to an ankle. Just your thoughts on Terry at least deciding to show up to camp, be around the meetings, be with his teammates.
It's a good thing, right, as we are experiencing in real time, that him being here definitely changes the dynamic for the fan base. And so hopefully we get to see more of Terry just at practice and engaging with his teammates, because this is a critical time. But I'm sure everybody in the building would agree they're happy that he's here.
Yeah, and absolutely. And then Santana. And, look, I've never hid this from my listeners. Like, I've been on this beat. This is my 4th year on the beat. Didn't grow up a Washington fan. Didn't have any NFL team as my favorite. But I do remember Santana Moss. And I think as a general football fan, that shows a little bit of his impact and how good he was. But you know Santana better than I do. Talk about Santana getting that ring of honor. And, I mean, week 1, just right off the bat.
That just shows what this organization is all about, right? Since they've been in place, we've seen them honor Darryl Green, so many. Darryl Green, our monk they're going to do this year. Santana Moss get into Ring of Honor. The first thing we asked Fred Smoot when we saw him was, did he cry? Yep. And he was like, yeah, because we all knew, Santana probably cried like a baby when he figured when they surprised him with that. This is a man who's in the building every day, but they still hid it from him and was able to keep that secret, right? So use your clues. This building knows how to keep a secret. So, but anyway, he deserves it. He deserves it. The fan base loves him. He loves the fan base. He loves his franchise. And so it's going to be so deserving, and it's going to be great for the energy in week 1 at home.
Absolutely. And the final question tomorrow is pad day. First day in pads. So we roam, right? We're going to watch a little bit of everything. But Candy Waller, Bowie TV, if you could only watch one part of padded practice, which part would that be?
Whoever is going up against Von Miller.
There you go.
That's all. That's legit what on day 1, I was like, did he just take 3 steps and he was at the quarterback? What is happening? And then he was at a rest day and he was back out there on day 3. And now I'm like, whoever against Von Miller, I want to see that.
All right, so that was Candy Waller, Bowie TV, coming through to join the show. You're talking about a lot of different things, but especially talking about that Terry McLaurin situation, how his presence gives a significant morale boost, not just to the fans, but also to the players, changes the dynamic of things, kind of reinforces everyone in the building, trying to be happy, get their leader back in during a critical time of the season preparation. And yeah, the fans, absolutely. I mean, when Terry came out to greet the fans after the practice was over, you just immediately hear how excited they were. Even during the practice, there were a couple of times where the fans started chanting, Terry, doing all that stuff. So the people love Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin loves the people. Made sure he specified in that conversation with us that, just because everything that's going on, he's not going to forget the fans that have always supported him and doing all those things. So if you're a fan, Terry McLaurin, he loves you too. Morale and all that, absolutely a huge factor, right? But there's some other layers to this Terry McLaurin conversation that we're going to get into here. Just kind of my own personal views, personal and professional views of what's going on here. And just talking about it from a leadership standpoint, right? And I've seen some Commanders fans talking about, if Terry's a real leader, he'd be in the building, helping those guys get ready and lead from the front and all that stuff. And look, there's certainly an aspect of that carries water. You know what I mean? Just because, the counter to that would be a lot of players hold out and a lot of players don't show up, and, it doesn't make Terry a bad leader. But I would just say that at the end of the day, it's not necessarily the right thing to do just because everybody else is doing the exact same thing. So I, for one, appreciate that Terry decided to come back in. He's going to be there in the meetings. I mean, he was there earlier for phase 1 and phase 2 of the offseason program, skipped phase 3, missed a few days here at training camp, but ultimately is back in the building. He's going to be there to help his teammates. I know that he was watching practice, not like from the sidelines, but was watching practice probably through the camera feeds that they have out there. So he was aware of what was going on during practice and how it all went and everything like that. And guys like Jaylin Lane and, Deebo Samuel's going to be in there. Jayden is in the building, obviously, with them. So they're going to be able to kind of continue that, just getting to know each other and all that stuff. So I think it's a very good, from a professionalism and leadership standpoint, kind of a good faith type of situation with Terry, where he just kind of shows the organization, look, even with my public comments about feeling disrespected and undervalued and all that stuff, I am still part of this organization. I still want to be a part of this organization, which he also said, but this really just kind of puts action behind those words. And who knows, maybe it'll inspire a little bit of an acceleration in getting the deal done. Maybe it won't, time will tell, but I think it's really good that he's there. Also getting the mental reps, it's one thing for Terry to know the playbook and have, a year practicing it and all those things, but it's different. And we all kind of know this, right? Sitting in a meeting on Zoom from your home is different than sitting in a meeting in the boardroom at the office. And this is the type of office where you need to be in those meetings in person if you can. So getting those mental reps, watching the tape with the quarterback who's throwing the pass or with the receiver that's running the route certainly is going to be incredibly valuable as he works through this pup situation and his ankle injury to get back onto the field. And then the smart decision as a businessman, like I said, I think it's kind of a good faith type of situation. I did have a conversation with one fan who kind of said, well, isn't this the only leverage he really had in the first place, was holding out, and now he's kind of giving that away? And I said, yeah, but I would also say and remind everybody that Terry McLaurin didn't really have any leverage anyway. If he's asking for over $30 million, his salary, his franchise tag number between what he's making this year and what his franchise tag number is this year, basically, and I was having a conversation about this with an insider, it's going to average out to about $26 to $28 million, somewhere in that range. And that's exactly what the Commanders could get him at an annual average value for this year or next year if they just franchise tag him, right? So you're not going to get Adam Peters to bid against himself, because that's not smart business. So that's the situation with Terry. We'll continue to monitor that. Of course, every night that I go to bed, I'll be wondering if news is going to break while I'm sleeping that he signed his contract. And then every morning when I wake up, I'll be wondering if while I'm driving to practice, he's currently signing his contract until we get there. We also caught up with running back Chris Rodriguez Jr. after practice. And this time I remembered my camera. So I don't have to just tell you what we talked about. I can actually show you, or you can hear it for yourself. That's coming next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you have been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. Well, that's where Game Time can come in and help you out. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever, with prices that actually drop as it gets closer to showtime. And you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. Hearing that Santana Moss is getting his Ring of Honor induction during the home opener has me even more exciting for the season to get started. The energy is going to be electric, and I'm already looking at the Game Time app to see if I can help out insiders who like to text me about these things to see where the best seats are, where the best prices are, and all those things. I know where my seat's going to be, but I want as many Commanders fans in there to celebrate with Santana and celebrate with everybody who loves Santana. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets or game tickets or show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create your account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create your account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. For our final segment today, we are joined by a player who has clearly put the work in this offseason, and it's turning some heads here at training camp. Commanders running back Chris Rodriguez Jr. noticeably looks different this year than he did last year. Got the chance to ask him about that physical transformation, his excitements for the pads to come on Monday, and what he wants to prove to people about his game this coming season. Here is our conversation with Chris Rodriguez Jr. All right, Chris. So I've talked about this on my show. We talked about it a little bit offline, but you slimmed down this offseason. Yep. Just give me kind of the focus behind that, the intent behind that.
Yeah, so my whole goal this offseason was to get faster, get a little slimmer. I was 240 coming into camp last year. One of the things me and DQ talked about was, can I take my body to the next level and get to where I feel comfortable at? And the goal was 225. And that's right where I'm at.
And I know we got pads on coming on. Which D lineman are you looking for to run it over the most?
Hold on, you ain't got some. Turn the camera.
So you said look forward to, but can you?
Oh, snap. How old are you? My bad, bro. I just asked a question, bro.
Hey, my bad. I'm about to take a walk together.
My bad, bro. My bad.
But yeah, speaking of pads, though, for real. So we got pads coming on tomorrow.
Yep.
Dan Quinn's kind of talked to us about how that changes the evaluation in the trenches, also the running back.
For sure.
So for you, how does that change things?
I mean, that's kind of what I model myself after, is being really, they call me the short bus, but being, that physical back, with pads off, it's kind of, it's not my game, but I'm trying to get better at it.
Yep.
But, when the pads come on, that's when you really can see, like, the physical between the O-line, D-line, linebackers, running backs, all around the board. So that's one of the things I've been looking forward to.
Absolutely. A couple reps that I've seen so far during training camp. One, you're running around the right side of the formation, get a little tangled up with somebody's feet, but you keep that balance, man. Yeah. How important is that contact balance for a running back?
Man, it's extremely important, especially for me. Like, if I want to be that physical back, sometimes I'm going to bounce off of tackles, and, it's up to me to keep my balance. So that was one of the things I had my focus on this offseason as well, and glad that it paid off.
And then pass catching. We've talked about this offline a couple of times. You made a nice catch in one of the practices specifically. When you had the opportunity to showcase your catching ability that most running backs don't get to, but usually are a little underrated, what do you want to show people?
Really just show people that I can do it. A lot of people doubted me, especially in the draft process. No one thought I can catch. But, I feel like I'm a great catcher. And, we got people like Austin Eckler and Kaz who are better at route running, out the backfield. And, defenses look out for that. They're not going to expect a bigger back like me to really get out and catch the ball. So whenever I can sneak out there and get some catches, I feel like it'll work in my favor.
And I know this is kind of a cheesy question that we like to ask y'all sometimes, but if you go back to rookie Chris Rodriguez and give him some advice, what would you say to him?
Just keep working, man. A lot of people don't see the work that goes in behind the scenes. And that's one of the things that, I felt like I struggled at, especially as my first year. I would do the work, when I would get here, and I would see people doing stuff, and I would do some extra things. But I think it's as far as like when people aren't around, people aren't looking at you. What are you doing? And that's what I'm trying to get better at is taking care of my body, getting in the weight room, doing extra hip mobility stuff so I can open up a little more. So just to stay in shape and do the things behind the scenes.
Big thank you, as always, for Chris Rodriguez Jr. taking out the time. Get to talk to him a lot. Usually we don't put it on the record today. We put it on the record, so it was really good to do that. You can really hear the focus, the determination in his voice, the motivation. A fun moment there with Sheldon Day. You always love that kind of stuff, but he also talked about the work going on behind the scenes, dropping the 15 pounds, getting lighter, getting faster. And I'll tell you, you can see it on the practice field, man. Shiftier, quicker, that contact balance is there. So really looking forward to seeing what Chris can do first day in pads. It's also great to hear him embrace the physicality of what's coming up, because we all know that's exactly what Dan Quinn and the staff wants to do. It all points to a still young player who has matured and is taking ownership of his career. And in a running back room that Coach Dan Quinn described as being deep and talented, Chris Rodriguez is doing everything he can do to carve out a significant role or any kind of role as we look forward to the upcoming season. That's going to do it for today's episode. Next time on Locked On Commanders, we're going to be back here with more practice observations from a padded practice, the first padded practice of the year. First day of fans is always exciting. That was Sunday. The first day of pads is always exciting too. That's coming up Monday. What a great week it's shaping out to be already. In the meantime, if you've got questions or comments, you can text them directly to me by becoming a Locked On Commanders insider at joinsubtext.com/Locked On Commanders. You'll get texts from me during press conferences and games, especially during practice, as much as I can while I'm taking my notes and observing. But you'll also get the opportunity to tell me what you think, ask your questions, bring up your topics for recommendations for the show, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. For your second listen, check out Locked On Bets. Betting experts Lee Sterling and Kevin Rogers have daily Major League Baseball locks and can't miss football futures. Find Locked On Bets on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. To the everydayers, I see you every day. I appreciate you every day, and I'm thanking you today. Until next time, stay safe, be kind to one another. We'll talk again real soon right here on Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.